And we are live. Hey, everybody. I am Haley Gray. I am a digital marketing expert. I do a little bit of business coaching, MBA from Duke, and group owner in the Women's Entrepreneur Network. And we are joining you guys tonight on Wednesday instead of Tuesday. I've got my good friend Victoria Bentley here. We're excited to be here. Hi, Vicki. How are you?
I'm good. It is so nice to see you. I missed you last week. I was traveling, and this is so nice to be back again. Albeit Wednesday instead of Tuesday, but life happens when it happens, doesn't it?
Life happens to us both this week.
Yeah.
And I will be off next Wednesday because I'm traveling to Auburn, Alabama for my son's college orientation. But tonight we have a really twitchy topic.
Yeah.
How do you deal with clients you can't stand or that get on your last nerve? Raise your hand if you've had that client that gets on your nerve, especially the ones that you need.
And I think the first comment is you got to remember this is business, and business is business. But for, the guy's an axe murderer, you got to put your feelings aside. And if you cannot, then you have no business working with that client. You have to make a decision that this is about whatever the problem is they're hiring you to solve. And if you don't think you can do it, then you're going to have to refer them to your best friend and realize you're sending money out the door and maybe recommendations of money out the door from that friend. So you really have to think about it before you say no. And I've had to say that at times, people can be argumentative or very baiting, or, you just might look like their stepmother or something, and they don't like their stepmother, right? So it is what it is.
There's going to be some people that you really, really, really can't help. I mean, and, those we try not to take as clients.
Oh, yeah.
Because we know that we really, they're above our pay grade, they're below our pay grade, they're not the right client, they're really not the right client, even though we want to try to help everybody. But then you sometimes...
They need to go see our podcast of the Life's Too Short client, and they'll understand.
But sometimes you get one that, you really can do a great job for this client. They're really your ideal client, but maybe your personality doesn't match.
Right. Put it aside.
And
if you can't, then the problem isn't the client. The problem is you. If you can't, if you are not professional enough to put it aside, and there are some I could not put aside, and send them to somebody else, send them to another employer.
Right.
But obviously they've hired you because they want your work. And so you got to do your best for them, whether you like them or not.
Yeah. And how do you do that best for them? Honestly, when you've got somebody that you don't like or who doesn't respect boundaries.
Now there's a topic for you. The people that call at midnight, the people who call at 7 a.m, the people who call the day after they've hired you and say, "Where's my stuff? Have you filed it yet?" Your timeline might not be their timeline. And I think that's the most important thing when you are sitting with someone and they are hiring you, is to review things like that. Like, what are the things that people fuss about? Well, they didn't get their stuff on time. You have to tell them when they hire you expectations. You will get this paperwork in a week, or this will be filed in 10 days, or that all has to be laid out. And I think a lot of the friction can be avoided by those upfront conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got a comment over here. And Carrie said, "I send people I don't like to my competitor. LOL. And if they are a different personality, I send them to a friend and they send me the ones they don't click with." Yeah. I mean, there can definitely be that, hey, we're not a fit. We're not able to meet your needs. We're not going to be able to do what you need done. So, let's do this stuff.
In my field, there are a set of ethical rules that you have to be very mindful of. And if you don't feel that you can adequately represent someone, you've got to hand them off. If you don't think you can do it because you don't like the client, for instance, you are required to hand them off, or not not take them on in the first place. But I think people often change. And I think in some businesses, like in law, like in divorce law, there's a lot of transference. I can no longer, blame you, so I'm going to blame the attorney, or I can no longer yell at you, or I'm mad at you because you're leaving me, so I'm going to take it out on the attorney. And I think there's a lot of that. I mean, when people are frustrated with their work, they'll take it out on
the nearest person, right?
Yeah, the closest person. And
I didn't communicate well, and this is something that we run into with marketing. I didn't communicate my goals well. I didn't communicate what I really wanted to happen well. Now I'm going to blame you because I didn't get what I wanted to have happen, even though I didn't actually communicate those goals to you.
Right. So somehow there has to be, in everybody's business, there has to be a questionnaire. And I had developed one of, red, yellow, and green. What are your goals? Give me 5 goals in your hiring me. Well, I'm getting divorced and I want you to get me the house, and I want total custody of the children, whatever. And I would say, green light, no problem, I can get you that. Yellow light, maybe. Red light, no way. And I had to be very clear with people so that nobody was blowing smoke, which many of my competitors would do. Oh, I can get you 80 and 90%. No, you can't. The law is equitable distribution. You're going to get an equitable share. You're not going to get all or nothing. And then somebody will say, yeah, but he left me for a secretary. Well, it's a no-fault state. They don't care if he left you for a whole circus troupe. It still is equitable distribution and feelings. And then you hear, but it's not fair. And you're absolutely right. There's nothing fair about it. And
fair just comes once a year in the fall.
Yeah, there you go. And fairness is a very hard obstacle to overcome with clients, because they don't think it's fair that they didn't get A, B, C. And it might not be, but you still have limitations by what you're able to do within, somebody comes to you and says, I want a website with 200 pages and I want it by next Monday. You're going to say, I can't do that, but I can do it
in time continuum
by, X date. And they'll say, okay, will you get it in writing, so that they can't come back and say, well, you told me next Monday. So, and people, like in my business, people who are disagreeable, and I think, well, yeah, I get why he dumped you. You're disagreeable, but maybe they're disagreeable because their heart's broken, and all that stuff has to be put aside. You have a job to do, and it's hard. It's really hard. Give me some stories.
In business, I sometimes work with people I love, and sometimes I work with people I don't love. And one of the things that I have learned is that many, but not all, probably 70 to 80% of problems can be headed off at the pass with good communication.
Oh, I agree. And I'll tell you what, that's where you earn your paycheck, because so many of your competitors can't communicate worth a darn. And they can be really good at designing websites, but they can't be really good at holding a client's hand or talking them through or explaining the process to them. That those communication skills are really that's
communication, reporting, status reporting, meetings. Those things are highly important. Giving people an interpretation of the data in my business is really important. When we start talking about search engine optimization or ad performance, I'm pretty sure that, you as an attorney are going to look at me like I've grown 4 heads, not just 3.
I'm not going to know what you're
not
talking
just
about.
2. If I'm talking about, here's your cost per click, and here's the, click through, and here's your cost per conversion. And I start talking about these things, and you're going to be like, do what? Is it good or bad?
Yeah. So, like I said, she who can communicate well with the client, especially and agitated or difficult, or come on, face it, everybody. You every week you're going to have somebody who walks through your door who's dumb as a box of rocks. And that's going to be a challenge because it's going to be hard to communicate with them. The chances are they're going to be more belligerent and they're not going to understand jack that you say to them. However, they might understand kindness, and that you have to do even though you might not be getting it back.
Right. Well, and then the other thing too is that, like Demira, thank you. She does promo materials and amazing like t-shirts and other things, for me, the reality is that like one of the core components of my business is SEO or search engine optimization, i.e. appearing on the first page of Google when somebody searches for something.
Wait, stop for a second. What a great description. You're talking about search engine appearing on the first page of Google. That's the goal. I can do that for you. I can meet that for you.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I get, right?
Right. But the way that I measure that, and so this is an interesting conversation that I have with my tech team, because the way that the client measures it is I show up on Google on the front page and I'm in the first position for a search, right?
Right.
Well, clients get really upset sometimes. And this is something that I had to learn along the way, earning my lumps about search engine optimization, because it's this really gnarly thing. And this communication piece is critical because from a technical side, I really care about keywords. I care about search terms, and I care about things like, meta tags, and I care about backlinks, and I care about all the who's what's it's and do's what's it's on a website. So,
and I care about being the first name that comes up so they hire me, right?
And you don't really care why you're not showing up on the front page of Google.
No,
you just know that you're not,
page.
or that you are. And so one of the things that we have to do is educate our clients that, okay, you're going to show up on Google on the front page or at the first term for these certain keywords first, and then we're going to go after these keywords, and really we're looking at search terms or keywords. And once they start understanding this is how the game is played just a little bit, they don't need to understand, how many backlinks we're driving to a particular page and how many pages we're building on their site and all these other like crazy things. They just care that they're showing up and that we can show them, okay, so here's where you're showing up and here's how it's impacting other parts of your website. And oh, by the way, here's how it's impacting phone calls to your business. And that's what we do.
I go back to she who communicates the best wins, because if you can, and I think this sounds harsh, and I don't mean it as severely as this sounds, but if you can sell it to a client, and that implies to some people that I'm being sneaky or that I'm being, I'm backdooring them. But, here's the reality. You're going to come in for a divorce and you got $1,000 of debt and you got $1,000 of assets. You're not going to end up with $100,000 a year in alimony. Do you know what I mean? That's just
really
a whoopee example. But a lot of people have misconceptions. And if you can sell them the truth, and I mean, don't try selling them something other than that, but if you can sell them on the reality of this, everybody's better off. And, like in your business, I would guess for most clients, this is how my husband always puts it. I love it. He goes, baby, don't tell me how the watch was made. Just tell me what time it is, right? So just tell me you're going to put me on the front page of Google, and I'm hiring your expertise. I trust you to get me there if you say you're going to get me there. And I think if you can sell the truth, right?
Yeah, and the timelines that it takes to do it. And y'all, it shouldn't take forever to get to the first page of Google.
That's right. And that's absolutely what I mean by the truth is You can't shade it. You can't say, oh, sure, next week, no problem. I sat in a conference with a judge, with another lawyer, and nobody likes this particular lawyer. He is dishonest. He is, and he's slick. I mean, the Brioni suit and the $2,000 shoes, and he looks good. He looks the part. He looks like he should be on CNN talking about the OJ case. He looks great. And the judge said to us, it was New Year, it was like the first week of January. So what are your goals this year? And the guy said to the judge, my goal is to bill $1 million this year. Now think about it. There are 2,000 hours in a year. Let's say every 8 hours is billable, which, it isn't. But let's just say it is. And there are some people who work 16 hours a day. I get it. But at $500 an hour, 2,000 billable hours is $1 million. Oh, wait, he wasn't earning $500 an hour. He was earning $200 an hour. So what he already told the judge, he just sold the judge on the truth that he's going to rip off his clients, which means he's going to rip off the judge or attempt to. He's going to sell the judge bullshit too. And I've never forgotten that, because when you try to do something that isn't on the up and up, it always gets you. I mean, it might not be this week, this month, this year, but it'll get you.
It does. It has a nasty way of coming back around and getting you.
Oh, and your reputation too. We all know those people in our business. Oh yeah, they'll promise you the moon, but they never deliver. Yeah. You don't want to be that person. That's a terrible. You can never get your reputation back once it's gone. No. You really can't.
No, can't.
So,
nope, not at all.
Colleagues you don't like, you still have to be professional. And I sat through that. I sat through that meeting and I said, I'm trying to work that math out at $200 an hour. And he didn't even understand what I was saying. And he didn't understand how
the math did not compute.
So it's not just clients you don't like, it's colleagues you don't like, or judges you don't like, or whatever. And being a grown-up means, you got to take your Wheaties, whatever.
Adulting is hard.
Adulting is hard. Thank you. That is perfectly put.
I looked at my husband recently and I'm like, adulting is a bitch. And then it turns you into one sometimes.
There you go.
Seriously. I mean, this is part of the doing business thing. Dealing with people sometimes that you don't absolutely love. Because you need to pay your bills, because you have a business, you're working with the general public. Sometimes people do things that are not so great, or, they behave a little bit badly, or they frustrate the daylights out of you. And that's part of it. Unless they're being like blatantly disrespectful and rude and abusive. Yeah.
And you and I remember a certain abusive person that we had to deal with once. And he didn't know how to talk to clients, and he didn't understand, because it wasn't his business. He was an employee, and what's it to him, right? And you can't afford to have that around. So, okay, I want to show everybody. I'm going to show you this picture, and I want to tell you, this has nothing to do with people you don't like. But
good.
I want you all to see this picture. Now, here are two guys there. I've got it standing up. And they got shovels in their hand. And something Skype for Business just popped up. What the heck? Anyway, so those two guys have worked all day in construction, showed up at my house at 5:30 and left at 5:09. And why were they here? They were here to dig a pond for me and drop in the form of the pond. And they put in a day after they put in a day, and they're working out in the heat. They're working out in the, it was 93 degrees here today and humid and whatever. They're out in construction all day long. And I think, what I got to close this out because it's popping up on me here. Sorry, guys. But here were these guys working their butts off in their 20s. And I said, come on, guys, go home. And they said, no, we both have babies and we got to put food on the table. And I thought, man, you got to admire that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, putting in a 16-hour day or whatever it is they put in. They started construction at 7 this morning and they left here. Okay, so it's a 14-hour day. But
Yeah.
they're going to go home and change some diapers and, you know, give some baby a bath and whatever. And I think my point is it's attitude. Attitude is so often more important than facts. If you have the right attitude, you can make it work.
Yeah.
Demire, with a client that wants to devalue your work and insists on getting hefty discounts or free stuff, you make it very clear ahead of time what the price is. You don't give a discount unless that's your policy. And free stuff, sorry.
No.
I'm in business. I'm not in free stuff.
No.
I'm not sure, Demire, when you say the client who wants to devalue your work, a lot of times people will hustle you to get you to take money off your bill by saying, well, you didn't do a good job. And that's just poison. And you gotta meet that head on and say, you know, I'm sorry, but that's dishonest. And you and I both know.
And sometimes people will be trying to get you to give them a deal or a huge discount.
Yeah.
And
this is my price and this is what I'm worth.
Yeah. And that's hard too. I know she does promo products and, you know, t-shirts and hats and bags and journals and really, really cute stuff. And
well, there's probably volume discounts, you know, if you buy 1,000 or a 5,000, I'm guessing. And if that's laid out,
I'm sure, you know, in the tricky part is, you know, you've got to have your pricing and it is what it is because the cost of materials in your business is what it is.
And you don't have any control over that.
No. And, you know, I have people too who are always trying to get me to give them huge discounts on marketing or, you know, nonprofits that want me to do stuff for free. And what I've learned is I can't because I can't afford to. You know, as a small business owner, I have labor costs. I have all the overhead. And
you got 4 kids to feed.
I do. And you have to pay yourself. And doing it for $3.50 an hour is not going to work out for me. And even though you're a mommy and you're working from home and you're doing those things, and it's not just you, I'm a mommy and I'm working from home and I'm doing those things, doesn't make my skills worth less or my time worth less. It means that I actually have to be smarter about who I'm doing business with and how. And back to your comment earlier, you know, sometimes how do you deal with clients you don't get along with? Well, sometimes you keep some of them if they're not abusive. But if a client turns abusive, they're out of here. I don't keep abusive clients.
That's right.
Or toxic clients.
If you allow it once, it will continue to happen, just like the battered wife thing.
It's a pattern that is really, really hard to break in business too, because you're going to always have those people. And here's the kind of the funny thing that I've seen a lot of times. And I don't know about you, Vicki, but for me in my business, the people who are constantly trying to get the biggest discounts, the ones who are trying to get my services for the least cost and all of that are frequently are the ones who they're slow to pay sometimes, but a lot of times they can most afford it. And it's the ones that don't quibble about the pricing. Sometimes I would say 90% of the time, this is the trend, is the people who don't quibble about the pricing are the ones who can, you know, who are stretching, who are making it a priority, who are putting their tails on the line to pay for this service. And, you know, and it's just really an interesting psychological experiment for me. And I've had to learn that, you know, I can't give you a discount, period. And furthermore, one of the things I've had happen with people is they will ask me for a discount. And then the next thing I know, they're going to Saratoga or they're going to Italy or they've just bought a designer handbag. So literally you're taking money out of my children's mouths to go buy that designer handbag. So I've learned that the answer is no.
Mm-hmm. I found in business, and in my law practice business, the two people who didn't pay were the very wealthy and the very poor. The person who's going off to work every day, they would usually pay their bills. But I can't tell you how many doctors would ask for a discount. Doctors who were earning 7 figures a year.
Yeah.
And I would just simply say, I'm sorry, I cannot do that. I still have to pay my people. And if I discount this, the profit isn't in the first client, it's in the last client. And I could sit around and try to analyze that. I don't bother. It is what it is. And I could just say, perhaps you need to talk to Sally Sue down the street.
Maybe
And
they can provide what you're looking for.
Just $200 more an hour and we'll rip you off. And I don't say that, but if somebody wants to be an asshat, I certainly can send them to someone who I think has an equally asshatty personality. And then I bet I've had, people, I can think of one woman in particular who fired me because I wasn't doing something she wanted, which I wasn't going to do. And she went to one of my competitors who I knew she would despise. And she came back and said, please take me back. Please take me back. And I said, oh, I just don't have time to do your case. And she said, I'll pay you double. And I said, nope. That's not it. It wasn't about the money. It was about, no, I can't work. She was trouble, and I knew it was going to be trouble, and I could not work with her.
Yep, totally. And, you've got to be careful when you've got those clients that have trouble written on their forehead. And they're not respectful of your time, and they're not respectful of your energy, and they're not respectful of your skills. You've got to set some strong boundaries. And I mean, there's a lot to be said for having a really good contract.
Yes.
And your price is clearly outlined in the contract and whatnot. I can't tell you how often, we've had to say, look, you're asking us to do something outside of scope, and, here's the rate that's quoted in the contract.
And then it's business.
It's just business.
It isn't personal. It's business. And as women, sometimes it's harder. Oh, it's a friend, or it's a, I've had people who were friends say, well, I'm your friend. Aren't you going to, like, look, I got to pay this person, this person, this person. I'm not doing this for free.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's hard. It's hard. But like you said, adulting is hard, and you learn. And I think another thing that people have to remember is to always be polite. Even when you want to punch somebody's lights out, you got to be polite.
Even if you're ready to throat punch them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had times where I get into a meeting with a client and I'm like, okay, obviously somebody woke up on the wrong side of their bed today. And, you want to throat punch them and you just don't.
Yeah, you can't. You just can't.
And you just, bless your heart.
And I just love her to death.
Bless her heart. All you got to say.
Haley, you're fun, and you're a good businesswoman, and I enjoy every minute we do this.
Me too. This is so much fun. This has been a good comedic relief today. Thank you for joining me tonight.
I am glad to be here, and I look forward to the next time we meet.
Thank you. Y'all take care. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.